Hello everyone, back at it again. This time I'm on a frozen lake. I haven't been here before this year, so the game plan here is to find some perch and then catch them. And at this particular lake, they kind of roam around a basin, and they can be hard to find, but once you find them, you can usually catch a bunch of them. There's a bunch of other species in here, but I seem to do the best with yellow perch. On this trip I did catch one white perch, and the white perch usually are bigger than the yellow perch. It's just how they run at this pond. Other ponds, they seem to kind of take over and get stunted. They get overpopulated and they get stunted. I guess that's true with both white perch and yellow perch. But yeah, we've got about 6 or 7 inches of ice here. Had some warm weather, I guess about a week or so ago, and it softened up that upper slush layer, and then it got cold again, and so that upper slush layer is, thawed and frozen and refrozen a few times. We're probably getting towards the end of safe ice around me. This is pretty near my house, so I don't have to drive too far. And pretty soon I'm going to have a choice if I want to drive up north and fish the last of the ice up north, or drive south and fish open water. But today we're fishing the ice. It's nice and cold. There's nobody out here, and I got the whole place to myself, so let's drill some holes and find some fish. Alright, I got my trusty drill auger combo, and it's just going to fly through the ice. So much better than the old hand augers. Actually, that's just the lower half of a hand auger. It's a 6-inch laser hand auger, and it's just the lower half of that. So what I'm doing is I'm drilling 2 holes next to in each spot. And my idea is to set up my underwater camera in one of them, and then have the handheld camera that I use to see what's going on, and my fishing line in the other. So there's going to be 3 lines down total in about 28 feet of water. And that's just a lot of lines. And it works a little bit better with the camera gear and the lines and the cable and the fishing line. In shallower water, there's less chance of those lines all tangling together. But in deeper water, the fish will, they're fighting on the way up, and they'll spin around and do circles and stuff like that. And inevitably, they're going to tangle in one of those lines. And I was thinking if I drilled 2 holes, I might kind of minimize some of that tangling. I'll tell you right now, it didn't really work. And I either need to drill those holes further apart to reduce the tangling, but if I go too far apart, everything that I catch is going to be off camera. So I might just end up fishing shallower ponds. So I fished around quite a bit before I found the perch. They were about 25 feet of water, something like that. And I switched lures a few times. I tried a Chisel vibrato. I'll list all this stuff in the video description so you don't have to memorize it. But they were bought by Berkeley, so now it's the Berkeley vibrato, but Chisel invented it. And basically it's a metal lipless, so it has no sound, but it has a ton of vibration. It's very good for calling fish in. The other lures I was using mostly were spoons, but because I'm in deeper water, 25, 28 feet, something around there, I was using spoons that were more like 1/5 of an ounce, 1/8 of an ounce, instead of very small Swedish pimples or small Castmasters or stuff like that. I was using more weight so I could get down faster, but also make more commotion when I was down there. So I'll just say a few words about my setup here. I've got the video camera that's supposed to be videoing the underwater view attached to that piece of 2x2 with some line wrapped around it. It's really not a very fancy system, but it's kind of the best I came up with the parts I had at home. And then I have a handheld video camera that I use to see what's going on down there. And when you find a school perch, it's hard to describe, but they all kind of look up at you like puppets or something, and their eyes kind of glow. So it's pretty easy to figure out when you found them with the camera, because it'll just be sand and mud and maybe a few scattered weeds, maybe an odd rock or piece of wood down there. Then all of a sudden the perch come in and the whole screen is lit up with perch. But like I said, it just takes a while to find them sometimes. They roam around this basin here, and it's pretty much all the same depth in this cove, and they just roam around the whole cove. I assume what they're doing is looking for little larvae and bugs to eat. Some of them, when they were coming up, they were coughing up little worms and larvae and stuff like that. So they're in the mud foraging. I assume that's what they're doing, getting bloodworms and anything else they can eat, really. A few of them looked like they were coughing up baby bluegill too, little 1-inch sunfish. And there's a lot of sunfish in here, and the perch will, they're not that picky. They'll eat pretty much anything that moves slower than them and can fit in their mouth. So I think the lure I was fishing here was a Haley. It's a good spoon for fishing in deeper water. It drops really fast. It doesn't have a ton of action, and it comes with a little chain before a small hook. I usually take that chain off and just replace it with a single hook like you might find on a Swedish pimple. And then onto the single hook, I add a little piece of worm. You can use the chain, but I've had the chain break before on bigger fish, and so that's why I take it off. It's kind of personal preference there. Some people think that the chain helps attract the fish and can get those shy biters that maybe are interested in the spoon, but they feel like they're more comfortable eating a small bait at the end of that small hook. So anyway, if you want to fish it stock, that's fine. You want to take off the chain and put a single hook on the back, that'll work too. So it doesn't have a ton of action, like I said, and that helps it fall to the bottom faster. And one of the keys when you find one of these perch schools is to get your lure back down fast. So you get the fish, you unhook the fish, you're not playing around with camera gear like I am here, and then you drop right back down and you get on the fish again fast before they swim away, because they really will roam around looking for more stuff to eat. All right, this is what it looks like underneath the surface. You can see some bugs scooting around. I don't know what they are, but I assume the perch will eat those too. And the bottom, it looks a little fuzzy, but it's mostly sand and mud, and this is the basin structure that they're roaming over. It's pretty much featureless. There are a few scattered patches of weeds. There are a few odd logs and rocks. They don't seem to hold the fish any better than anything else. So these fish are just roaming around this basin. They tend to stay in that 20 to 30 foot zone, or at least that's where I find them. Not so much in, like 10 to 15 or anything like that. I'm working a Chisel vibrato. Again, now it's made by Berkeley, but Chisel vibrato, and it really does have a ton of vibration, and I use it to try to call fish into me. Now this sometimes works. If there's fish in the area, they tend to be kind of curious, even if they don't want to eat the vibrato. And I should say, I usually don't fish the vibrato with any bait. It's one of the few lures I use without any bait at all. It works really well for aggressive fish, and it works really well for calling fish in. So, if you stuck a fish finder down a lot of these holes, you'd see nothing. You'd see the bottom, and that's it. So the trick is, even if there's nothing on a fish finder or nothing on camera, is to put something down that will kind of call the fish to you. And if they're in the area, say, I don't know, a 10-foot radius, they will usually come over and check it out. So that means I'm drilling a lot of holes, kind of a search pattern. I'm trying to get the fish to come in. And then once I see them on camera, I'll do the bait and switch. I'll pull the vibrato, and then I'll switch to a Haley or a 1/5 of an ounce Swedish pimple, something like that with some bait on it, and then catch them. Now, unfortunately for this video, all the underwater catches were lost. Something happened with the video recording where it only recorded the first 5 clips, and stopped. I don't know why it stopped. So I will figure that out. But I just wanted to show you, it looks like the surface of the moon down there. That's pretty much featureless. All right, back to the fishing. All right, back to the catching. Once you find the perch, they're pretty agreeable. You just have to get something down there fast, something that's about the size that they're willing to eat, something with some bait on it. I usually fish gold spoons, but it really doesn't matter. Silver, gold, painted, sometimes perch like yellow and chartreuse, sometimes orange. It depends on the day, but really it's not the color and the presentation and everything else. It's really not that important for these fish. The hard part is finding them. And once you find them, you can put almost anything down there and give it a few hops and shake it a little bit in their face, and they're going to jump all over it. Part of the reason for that is that they come in large groups. It could be a dozen fish, could be 20, could be 40. It could be, I've seen schools of 100 or more fish. And on a fish finder, it looks like you just went over a shed or something. They can be over 25 feet of water. You could have 15 feet of perch underneath you. And so the hard part is really just finding them, and then the competition thing kicks in, and they climb all over it. Now this is something a little bigger, a little different. You could actually see him on my handheld underwater camera, and I was specifically trying to catch him because he was bigger. It ended up working out, and that's a white perch. Now, I said this earlier, but the white perch here, they run bigger than the yellow perch. Maybe it's a competition thing. I don't really know, but there are a few white perch in here, and all of them that I catch are bigger than the yellow perch. The yellow perch, most of them top out around 12 inches. There's a few bigger ones, but most of them are in that 10 to 12 inches, and there's a ton of them. The white perch, they can, be 12 to 14 easily, and some even bigger than that. And it's always fun when they show up, but a lot of days it's just all yellow perch, which is fine. I think yellow perch, if you're going to keep them to eat, they taste a little bit better to me than the white perch. Again, it's kind of a personal preference thing. White perch, to me, they taste a little bit more, gamey, I guess. You can definitely tell that you're eating, a fish with some more flavor than something like, cod or haddock or pollock, some kind of mild, neutral white fish like that. The white perch has a little stronger flavor. I guess if you batter and bread anything and fry it, it'll all taste pretty good. But I think the yellow perch tastes a little better. Just my preference. Somebody else down the street might think it's the other way around. So yeah, it was pretty much one after another once I found them. I'm not cutting this video too much. The hard part was finding them. You can see that one, he's tangled up in one of my camera lines. I had one fish that got tangled up underneath the ice. I had to bring him through the second hole in order to get him off the hook. So I got to figure out a better way of fishing in deep water, because this wasn't it. But the action was pretty good, and I was happy to be out here and catching a bunch of fish before the ice melts. I know you can't see it on my handheld screen there, but I can see all the fish very clearly on it. And I have people ask me all the time, what kind of underwater camera that is. They don't make this one anymore, but you can find equivalent ones on Amazon for about $100, and they go up from there. You could find $200 ones. I think Aquaview Micro is about double that. But yeah, any of them, they show the same. They have a lot of the same components, and they show you exactly what's going on down there. And for me, it really changed my ice fishing game. I learned so much every trip. And for $100 compared to a fish finder or a flasher or forward-facing sonar, I mean, just the unit is quite expensive. And then there's the transducer. You need some kind of case to carry it. You need a battery, and those batteries aren't cheap, especially if you get a lithium battery to power it. This handheld camera is great. It's $100. It comes with the battery. It comes with a charger. It comes with a little case. They're super light. You can carry it really anywhere, compared to a fish finder with a transducer or a flasher with one of those pucks and a case and a battery. For the price and the form factor and the weight and what you get out of it, what you actually get out of it in return and learn from it, I think it's probably the best money on electronics and ice fishing, and most people don't have one. So if you were thinking about it, I would give it 2 thumbs up. Oh, I just missed one. I can watch them on the camera eating it. Sometimes I get a little too trigger happy with the hook sets. I also don't want them to swallow it, because I'm releasing all the fish today. But eventually one of them grabs it. Oh, I dropped that one. There we go. Yeah, for this kind of fishing, you can use all kinds of different setups. I went through a few of the lures. This is a medium light jigging rod with, I think it's a President 20 size reel. But anything in that medium light to medium range would be great. My line's icing up a little bit. I'm trying to get that spoon to go down the hole, and it doesn't want to go because I have ice on my guides and ice on my line. I've got braided line. I guess it's actually a fusion, but that's I think it's 3-pound Fireline crystal line. It does ice up more than mono or fluoro, but for fishing in deeper water, it doesn't have any stretch. You can feel everything. Even if you don't have the best rod with braided line, you can feel everything down there. You feel the bites, and you get good hook sets because it doesn't have a lot of stretch. And then on top of that, I put a liter of 4-pound Suffix Ice Magic. And then I've got a little snap, and then either a Haley spoon or the 1/5 ounce Swedish Pimple. And those are both in gold. The Swedish Pimple is a hammered gold finish, but again, I really don't think it matters. You could put almost anything down there and they jump all over it. So what you really need is something that drops quickly and gets in their face, and then I'm doing a lot of shaking. I'm trying to lift them, that kind of stuff. that is one factor. If there's a big school of fish, I generally try to keep my my spoon above them and get a couple fish to come up to it, and that way you don't spook the whole school. So if they will eat it, I mean, right off the bottom or an inch off the bottom. But if you pull up a hooked fish through 3 feet of other fish, you're going to spook the whole school. So it's better to keep the lure above the fish and have 1 or 2 come up, and then pull them away from the school without spooking the whole school. But it was pretty much like this the whole afternoon, you know, just every couple minutes, another one's on the ice, or that one was a quick release, which I don't mind at all. But yeah, just one after another, good fishing. A lot of people, maybe they'd be a little bit shy about fishing a jigging rod instead of tip-ups, at least where I am. I see a lot of people still fishing tip-ups with no jigging rod, and whatever you want to do is great. You know, if you like tip-ups better than jigging rods, that's great. But if you're looking to catch more fish, I think the jigging rod's the way to go. I mean, on a good day, I can, in terms of just numbers of fish, I can outproduce 5 tip-ups just jigging. And if you were a tip-up fan and you had, depending on where your state is, you can have maybe 5 tip-ups or 6 tip-ups or even more in some states. But if you wanted to still set tip-ups, you know, set 4 or 5 tip-ups, and then with the last line jig. And if you get a flag and they're perch or some other panfish, crappie or something, you know, pull that tip up and jig that hole, and you'll be surprised how many more fish you catch on the jigging rod than you can with tip ups. My other rod kind of froze up, and so I went back to the sled and I picked up another rod. This happens to be a medium power rod, and it's got a little bit more backbone. I don't really need the extra backbone for these fish, but it's just convenient. If one rod starts to ice up really badly, I can just drop that rod and pick up another one and fish for a while until the second rod freezes up, and then if I have to, I can fish a third rod. So again, the actual gear and the spoon really isn't too important on this fishing trip. It's all about location and just getting something in front of those fish quickly. You can see all the cable that has to go down to 25 feet, and it can be a little cumbersome. I try to store it in loops on my hand when I'm walking around, like I don't know, like maybe a extension cord or something like that. You can think of it like that, and then drop each one of those loops successively back down the hole, otherwise it can tangle. But with all that cable down the hole, yeah, it can cause problems with fish getting wrapped around the cable or wrapped around that line that holds the other underwater camera. So I had to walk away for a minute to switch rods, and I've got 1/5 of an ounce Swedish pimple now, and I just had to do some more aggressive jigging to get the school to come back to me. And then once they come back to me, I slow down. I try to lift them a little bit, put it up over their heads, do more shaking and less hard jigging motions, and just give them a chance to eat it. And I'm back in business. My spoon's spinning a little bit, so I'm just giving it a second to untwist itself before I go back down the hole. Both the Haley and the bigger Swedish pimples, they fall pretty fast. You could also use a Castmaster, but I feel like Swedish Pimple falls a little bit faster, and so I can get back on them just a little bit faster. And then once you're on them, doesn't take long until you get another one. Most of these were pretty good sized perch. They'd be fine for the table, but I wasn't keeping any today. I really like to eat saltwater fish a little bit more than freshwater fish. Kind of a personal preference thing. But if I do, hook one badly, or the hook gets in the gills, or something like that, I have no problem keeping a fish for the table, or saving them for later. My cat's a big fan of fresh fish too. But as long as I'm paying attention, I really don't hook fish badly with the jig stick. Compared to something like tip ups, where gut hooked fish are kind of a common thing just because of the design of it, and they might swallow that hook more readily. Even without the camera, I really don't gut hook or foul hook too many fish. That Chisel vibrato is kind of an exception. I've got a few fish in the gills. They eat it so aggressively it gets in their gills, and there's a treble hook in their gills, and if the fish are bleeding badly, those fish are coming home with me. But most of the time I'm fishing with a spoon or a piece of plastic and a jig head, and I foul hook or gut hook or injure the fish very seldomly fishing this way. And I can pick and choose which fish I decide to keep or release. It works out pretty well for me. After every ice season, when I'm bass fishing, I'll often find bass with ice fishing hooks still stuck in them. Those hooks, especially the newer hooks with higher grade steel and like a fluorine coating, that slick gray coating, takes those hooks a long time to rust out. So I end up removing a lot of hooks, especially in the spring after ice fishing season ends, from bass that have swallowed somebody's ice fishing hook, and either they didn't have the right tools to remove it, or they didn't have forceps or pliers, or they actually broke off the fish. Sometimes I find fish with like 12 inches of line sticking out of their mouths, and that's because they broke the line maybe at the hole or something like that. But all these fish release really easily back down the hole. I am fishing a little deeper, and it's important to release them quickly. 28 feet is about my cutoff, and this is about 25. So, if you're fishing in deep waters, well over 30 feet, sometimes the fish don't release well, and in that case, I'll just plan on keeping them if I'm going to fish for them in that depth. Suspended fish are a little different. It depends on the depth they're coming out of, not necessarily how deep the water is. So if you're fishing suspended fish that are 20 feet down over 50 feet of water, that's usually not a problem. This one's all messed up in my cable. But if you're fishing fish that are, 40 feet down over 50 feet of water, that can be a problem. And so, like I said, I'll just plan on keeping those fish until I've kept my limit or whatever I feel like I want to keep. Or I'll move shallower and try to find some fish shallower that will release better and fish in that depth. All right, it's been a good afternoon of fishing. Sun's getting lower. These fish kept biting all the way until dusk. But I think I left around 5:30. I think I had enough by then. It was getting a little colder by then. My second rod was icing up. But as long as you can stay on them, stay on that school, they'll keep biting right up until dark. And, you know, you can easily catch a limit of perch this way. So, thank you all for watching. I'll list everything in the video description. And I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!